Everyone has heard the stories about what happened back in '68, the most brutal series of occult murders in Wyoming history. 10 victims killed over a series of 4 months, found with their hearts cut out near some old cabin out in the sticks. All these innocent people's lives were cut short in the service of worshiping some entity that nobody else understood. Thankfully, the murders had stopped by the start of the 70s, and this humble Wyoming county knew nothing but peace for several years after. But the cabin where it all happened remained abandoned. The ground was sour there, weighed down by the horrors that transpired. You need to be brave or foolish to set foot there, all things considered. That's what led 17-year-old Charlie and his reluctant girlfriend Samantha to that rickety old building one cold, dark winter night. He was doing what most foolhardy teenage boys tried to do with almost every action they took: prove himself. Samantha was just along for the ride despite her protests. Her folks had always warned her about this place. The word they most often used to describe it was evil. But Charlie wouldn't take no for an answer. He was going to open that rickety front door and step inside. And Samantha would watch in awe of his bravery, though as he got closer and felt his fingers nearing the door handle, a pang of fear tingled through him. Was this really something he wanted to do? Too late to back out now. Samantha was watching. He couldn't be a coward. He needed to commit. He needed to prove he could do this. Charlie took a final deep breath, opened the door, and stepped through into the dark. He would never be seen again. Samantha squinted and looked into the dark. There was no into, really. It was like a giant black rectangle was obscuring the doorway. There was no way to make out any of the features inside. She called her boyfriend's name with a quivering voice and got nothing in response. That's when she should have started running. It might have even saved her. A figure emerged from the door, walking fast. It was solid black, with no discernible features, only a vaguely humanoid shape. It walked towards her with such speed and purpose that poor Samantha didn't even have time to scream. The creature extended a clawed hand and reached through her chest. It didn't even break the skin, just phased through her skin, muscle and bone, like a ghost passing through a wall. Suddenly, she felt immense pain as the creature drew back its hand. It was holding something that moved and squirmed in its clawed grip. It was only as Samantha collapsed, her vision going dark for the last time, that she realized she was looking at her own beating heart. And this wouldn't be where the horrors ended for this little Wyoming town. No, this was only the beginning. More people would go missing in the following days and weeks. Wildlife and livestock would also be found dead under mysterious circumstances. Local vets were baffled by dead pets found in yards with no obvious cause of death, only to be confused and horrified when they performed an autopsy and found massive internal bleeding and a missing heart, despite the fact that there was never any kind of wound indicating a heart's removal. Your average weird occult murders are the FBI's problem, but when hearts start to disappear in a mysterious fashion, that's how the SCP Foundation gets involved in your case. They dispatched a number of field agents into the town in order to track down the source of this anomalous activity and potentially secure and contain whatever hostile entity was behind it. In this case, they really didn't need to track the entity down. It came for them. 3 agents were driving down a lonely Wyoming road near the cabin when a sudden series of shapes glowed into prominence in the car's high beams. It wasn't just one of those Vantablack creatures. It was several. The second the car ground to a halt, the entities engaged with extreme hostility. They attacked, seemingly unaffected by conventional arms fire from the 2 agents in the front seats. They dragged them out of the car before reaching into their chests and pulling out their hearts. The agent in the back seat got lucky. He'd had experience with beings similar to this in the past, and had one method that might work. As they drew towards him, he loaded a magazine of silver-tipped rounds into his handgun. Closer, closer. The agent also happened to be a devout Muslim, and as the creatures approached, he drew his weapon and prayed to Allah for the strength to overcome these demons. He opened fire just as they were climbing into the car and reaching for him. For the first time, the bullets seemed to have an effect. The creatures squealed as the gunfire rendered through them. The ones dealt fatal wounds briefly convulsed before melting into a fine sulfuric sludge. The agent, thinking on his feet, noticed that the creatures that stole the hearts of his two fellow agents were fleeing. He followed them, trying to find their source. And of course, it was the cabin. The creatures passed back through the open door into the darkness of the cabin. How many of them were there? And what was going on inside? Naturally, the full mind of the SCP Foundation rolled into town not long after this incident. Knowing now that the cabin, designated SCP-1983-1, was the source of the creatures, designated SCP-1983-2, things were easier to get under control. A fake chemical plant was built around the cabin as the pretense to keep it contained. This plant became known as Outpost 54. On-site researchers would sleep in the facility. Soldiers required for the regular culling of 1983-2 instances would make their home in the barracks. And of course, there was also a large armory filled with the specialized weaponry and ammunition required to put the rampaging, heart-stealing creatures down. The fateful encounter that the surviving agent had with these aggressive entities provided the Foundation with an invaluable piece of data on how to combat SCP-1983. For reasons not fully understood, the 1983-2 creatures have an extreme reaction against sincere human belief. It doesn't matter which religion you personally follow. If you are a true believer and you make a prayer to your deity of choice while firing on one of these monsters with silver-based ammunition, you will be able to slay them. Brings a whole new meaning to the phrase spray and pray. But the belief must be truly sincere for the attack to work. If there is doubt or skepticism in your heart when you're praying and firing, well, let's just say it won't be your heart for much longer. These very particular killing methods are the reason that MTF Chi-13, also known as the Choir Boys, were brought in to be the personal stewards of 1983's Containment. They're a mobile task force formed entirely of devout religious believers, whose faith guards them against the influence of a number of occult monsters, SCP-1983 included. The Foundation performed a series of cursory tests on the cabin itself. The building contained several frustrating spatial anomalies, with the locus of these being the front door and the living room behind it. The living room seemed impossible to access by any means other than the anomalous aperture in the front door. Any attempts to enter it via the wall or other doors in the house simply caused the researchers to pop up in different areas of the house. After a barrage of tests, including busting holes in the exterior walls in an attempt to enter, to no avail of course, the O5 Council forbade further testing. It simply wasn't worth potentially creating more openings that 1983-2 instances could emerge from. This left only one option: launching excursions into the heart of the anomaly itself via the portal in the front door. This seemed to be the only way to successfully gather intel about the inner workings. For the first of 3 fateful incidents, a detachment from the Choir Boys armed with silver munitions were sent into the portal. None of them ever returned. But for the first time in years, the front door mysteriously closed again. This led to a drastic reduction in the release of SCP-1983-2 instances, but still left a whole team potentially stranded inside. A second detachment from the Choir Boys was prepared to head in and, if not rescue, at least find out what happened to the first. They opened the door and ventured inside, only for history to repeat itself. Not one of them would ever be seen alive again. And what's more, with the door once again open, another one of the entities soon charged out and began attacking more Foundation researchers. The onslaught stopped only with the brave sacrifice of Agent Morris, a field agent stationed at Outpost 54 at the time. He entered the doorway and closed the door once again from the inside. Just like everyone else, Agent Morris was sadly never seen alive again. But on May 23, 1989, something remarkable happened. Having wasted too many agents on this anomaly already, the Foundation decided to send in a D-Class. The D-Class in question was Jackson Parker, a man whose personnel file indicated that he had a profound belief in the moral fairness of the universe, that everything that happened simply must have happened for a reason, even his own incarceration. He was given a camera with a live feed and a lifeline leading back outside before practically being pushed into the cabin. Moments later, the lifeline was pulled taut and snapped. The feed cut off at around the same time. Foundation researchers at the outpost sighed, having lost another guinea pig. Little did they know, Jackson Parker wasn't dead. And what's more, he was about to do what no agent of the SCP Foundation could: destroy SCP-1983. On the inside, Jackson was met with a nightmare. This anomaly was so much worse than anyone knew. It didn't look like the inside of a cabin. It was a surreal shadow dimension looking like a patchwork amalgamation of so many different buildings. Hospitals, schools, offices, homes, factories, military installations. Jackson even recognized the dingy basement of his childhood home among the chaos. At that moment, it was clear. This wasn't just one anomalous location. It was the nexus point for many. How many doors were there out there? In how many different buildings, unleashing the horrors of SCP-1983 across the world? Across dimensions, even. Lucky for Jackson, he was about to receive a little help from beyond the grave. One of the choir boys, Agent Barclay, had written a note before he died. Here he gave the few pieces of information Jackson needed not only to survive, but potentially even destroy this thing once and for all. First, that the entities born from the shadows are weaker in the dark. Light gives them form. In the dark, they're intangible. Second, there is no way out through the front door. If someone tries to escape outside, their body will melt almost instantaneously. And most importantly of all, Agent Barclay realized why they'd been taking the hearts. In the center of this terrible place lies the nest, a giant pile of human hearts surrounded by light sources, acting as a kind of incubator. After being placed in the nest, the hearts burst open and new instances of SCP-1983-2 emerge. If someone could destroy the nest, it may destroy the very heart of SCP-1983 and finally neutralize this nightmarish anomaly. Agent Barclay had lost his faith seeing his friends slaughtered around him, so he didn't have it in himself to finish this thing. It could only be Jackson now. And as you know, Jackson had an unshakable belief that everything happens for a reason. Perhaps the reason he was here was to finally bring an end to the suffering, and that's exactly what he was going to do. Jackson shouldered Barclay's rifle and charged through the labyrinth, gunning down attacking SCP-1983-2 entities on the way. He was a man on a mission. Soon he made his way into the central chamber and finally saw it. The nest. This horrifying pile of wriggling human hearts. One of the many sights that finally broke Agent Barclay. But Jackson stood unbroken. He aimed the rifle at the nest and opened fire, the sheer force of his unshakable belief supercharging his every shot. He had struck a killing blow at the heart of the beast, avenging everyone it had ever murdered. On the outside, to everyone's amazement, SCP-1983 disappeared. The front door opened and the darkness dissipated within. When agents and researchers entered, they found the desiccated corpse of several mobile task force members, but all signs of the previous anomaly were gone. From the same note left on the corpse of Agent Barclay, it was clear to researchers that Jackson Parker had taken the advice and finally neutralized this dangerous Keter Class anomaly. Though Jackson himself was nowhere to be found, he was given a posthumous Medal of Bravery and Merit by the Foundation, only one of two ever awarded to a D-Class. I guess you could say that everything happens for a reason. Now go check out SCP-3999, I'm at the center of everything that happens to me, and SCP-5049, The Skin Salesman, Demon Dan's Discount Homunculus Depot for more explorations into the hearts of genuinely unnerving SCPs.